Hi, everybody, and welcome to the Friday edition of Moohead Radio. I'm doing it a little early today because I finally got some weather out here that's going to be like in the mid 60s. It went all the way down to 29 degrees here in Florida, and people don't cope in Florida with 29 degrees. I mean, it's as it is, half the population down here is embalmed. So the cold just preserves them further. Got some things on my mind today, and one thing more than any other. And the name of the show today is the Old Boy Network. And most people understand the references to the Old Boy Network is usually in sports associated with the NFL. It's the reason why Pat Shurmur is, close to getting a job as the head coach of the New York Giants. It's retread city. It's almost like this, what did Charlton Heston say about, the white guys, the founding fathers? Those old white guys knew something. And, and I think you can be any retread whatsoever and keep getting jobs in the NFL. It's literally like a carousel. And, a couple of years ago, Pat Shurmur was a vegetable. And now he's on the cusp of becoming a head coach again, even though as a head coach, he was not good. And we see it all over the league. And the people who the Browns are talking to their offensive coordinator position, the Mike Munchaks of the world and people of that ilk are multiple retreads in the NFL. And it's funny, not funny like ha-ha funny, but kind of coincidentally funny that the Me Too movement, which is women who have an axe to grind with men about certain misdoings, and some who just have an axe to grind against men, have created a gender concept of the boys network or the old boys club. In Hollywood, of course, it goes far beyond that. The right of men to paw, ogle, and score women is legendary in Hollywood. It only seems to have made a difference to anybody in the past 6 months or so. The truth of the matter is there are a lot of old boy networks. Congress is one of the biggest old boy networks there is. Freshman senators and state representatives who are U.S. representatives come into office thinking they're going to do something different. And, then they get put on the most meaningless task forces in the government and basically are buried by an avalanche of being ignored. That's part of the old boys club. Almost every industry I can think of has an old boys club, including the NBA and including the press. And this is where we start today. I'm a believer in protecting sources, and I've been doing this for 14 years, and I end up knowing far more than I should. But because I have integrity, I keep my mouth shut. And the only time I don't keep my mouth shut is when I see things that are disingenuous being foisted in front of the fans on multiple sites, including the ESPN sites and the Cleveland.com sites and other Northeast Ohio sports sites that are misreporting stories, all in the name of the Old Boys Club. And let me explain to you how the Old Boys Club is played in the press, because you may not know this, and maybe you'll stop and think when you read something the next time that it may not be exactly as presented. In the press, there's on the record and there's off the record. All right. On the record is like Fred McLeod after the game sitting with, Kevin Love in the locker room, and Kevin Love is talking about, why he thinks the Cavaliers are unable to play a full 4 quarters of basketball. That's on the record. The camera's got a red light on. They're on live on the air, and Kevin Love is talking. That's on the record. You ask a question on the record in a press conference to Tyronn Lue. Hey, are you upset with the players? And he will answer something to the effect of, I don't remember, because he knows he's on the record. And in that moment of being upset, if he says, fuck yeah, I'm pissed off at these players, they refuse to play in the second half of basketball games, And no, they're not fucking tired. They're selfish. Then there's going to be a big brouhaha between the coach and the team. And we've already seen from David Blatt, the coach doesn't win those brouhahas. Consequently, you get the I don't remember answer. That's when things are on the record. But then there's this gray area called off the record. Now, I'll be honest with you. If I told somebody something off the record, I would be expecting nothing to be said about something at all. Okay? If something were said to me, and I'll give you an example. Let's say that somebody said to me, and I'll go back historically so that it doesn't hurt anybody who's playing the game today. And I want to point out that what I'm about to say is not true. I'm using it as an illustrative example. Let's say that going back to the Cleveland Browns in the 1960s, that Bill Nelson, the quarterback, had an affair with somebody, and that was off the record. I would just not broach the subject. I wouldn't talk about that. Not in any capacity. I wouldn't make hints at it. I wouldn't make suggestions about it. I simply say, somebody in good graces told me that off the record, and so it shall stay forever. Off the record. And a number of things have been told to me off the record over the course of years, and I have protected people because when I'm told something that is not flattering about a specific athlete and it's off the record, my job here is not to embarrass athletes, nor is it of interest to the people who view the program to get salacious details about somebody who's having a problem. However, when I wake up, when I get information that is off the record, and I'm told specifically this is not to be addressed, and then I wake up the next morning and seeing it addressed in a fallacious way, that means false. That means it means that they're lying to the people who are reading the articles. I have a real problem with it, and I've sat still and kept my mouth shut for the last couple of days. Today, Brian Windhurst went on 850 WKNR and said that LeBron was frustrated, and that the LeBron being frustrated was because he doesn't trust the Cavaliers organization in the way that it handled the Kyrie Irving trade, and that he is perhaps going to re-sign with the Cavs, but not for a max deal, and that perhaps he is upset with the organization. Mr. Scoop, Brian Windhurst. And I have nothing against Windy. In fact, I love the fact that he got out of Northeast Ohio and made his way into the national spotlight. Good for him. There are rules to every game, I suppose, and you play the rules that are given you. However, I'm not going to keep my mouth shut today, folks, because I think there are lies being told, and I want to clear the air because I don't feel good about this. First of all, maybe LeBron James does not trust the organization. That's the mealy-mouthed version of what I'm going to tell you now. The stories that came out in all of the major press in Cleveland and Northeast Ohio said that several Cavaliers players were upset, and they were distraught and upset about the circumstances surrounding the team. And that the players didn't have names, but there were several of them. It was a lie, a concoction. It was another byproduct of off the record. There was only one player who was upset. There was only one player who was distraught. And that one player was LeBron James. And now Brian Windhurst is going to suggest that LeBron James perhaps doesn't trust the organization. But what they're not telling you, because of the Old Boy Network, is the tirade that LeBron James went on for over 30 minutes after the Warriors game in full hearing view of all the press, under the stipulation that it was off the record. That the tirade started in the tunnel, went to the locker room, and ended up in the parking lot outside of his car. Now, why does this piss me off? Well, for one reason, multiple players being stated as being distraught lies, and it brings people into a story they don't belong in. If LeBron James is really the leader of this team, he should be man enough to stand up and state his disappointment in a public way, and not stand behind the old boys network to protect his sorry ass because he's pointing fingers left and right in a 30-minute tirade. Now, I'm a LeBron supporter. Everybody knows that. Everybody knows that. I think he's the greatest player who's ever played the game. Everybody knows that. But it bothers me when somebody disingenuously says, well, I'm the leader of this team and people look up to me, ... Well, then stand up like a fucking man and complain about what you've got to complain about. But don't bring other people into this story or allow the press to soil or sully the reputations of other players on your team. You're supposed to be a team player. You're supposed to be Mr. Assist. You're supposed to make everybody around you better. The bottom line is that you just shot down your teammates. You allowed, by taking the old boys network, you allowed members of the press to concoct a story about imaginary teammates who were distraught over the team. Now, you're saying this isn't really that big a deal, is it, Mr. Moohead? And the answer is yes, it is. Because part of the 30-minute tirade was LeBron James going off on the front office, making ridiculous comments or accurate comments, depending on how you wanted to look at what he was saying, including that the team would have traded him by now if he didn't have a no-trade contract, and the fact that members of the front office were, quote, motherfuckers. Now do you understand where I'm going with this? Doesn't trust the organization? Oh, just a little, I'd say. Duh. So that when LeBron James, as I've told you since the beginning of the season, would most likely find his way out of Cleveland because he and Dan Gilbert have never really had a lasting peace. These two men are as different as night and day. One is short, one is tall, one is white, one is black. One is a political right-wing conservative, the other is a political left-wing Democrat. They don't have much common ground, and they have, unfortunately, a history of altercation in which nasty things were said. The likelihood from the beginning was that LeBron James probably wouldn't come back to Cleveland after achieving his legacy goal of winning a championship in Cleveland, and it certainly didn't help that the front office traded a great basketball player away for a bunch of broken pieces that don't function. And look, it doesn't take Einstein to figure out which team got swept in the Cleveland-Boston playoffs the last time around and what players were on that Celtics team, Jay Crowder and Isaiah Thomas. You know, it doesn't surprise me one iota with what I've seen of the effort or what is left of the tangible skill set of these players that they did get swept. These are the types of players that if you're the Celtics organization, you want to get rid of. The whiny ass, give up loser types who don't take charge of a game when it's necessary, or a broken down shell of a player who can no longer beat his man off the dribble. If you're LeBron James, you sign the goddamn contract, play it out. If you have problems with the front office, talk to the front office. If you feel that, and again, part of the tirade, that 6 or 7 players on this roster have the same exact skill set, discuss it with the front office. But I don't want to hear this bullshit about multiple players in the locker room being upset because the other players are mystified at why LeBron James holds the ball in the end of basketball games. When he's the guy who handles the ball more than anyone else on the team, why the ball stops moving and why they stop sharing the ball. The players are mystified. Kevin Love is mystified why he's not getting any paint touches anymore when he was clearly having his best season as the Cleveland Cavaliers 5. And now, once again, he's being relegated to watching a hobbled Isaiah Thomas try to dribble around men and not being able to do it and having to hoist up bad threes just to get the 10, 11 shots he's getting in a fucking game. Whatever happened to the initial possessions of the game where the Cavs always started by throwing the ball down low to Kevin Love? Kevin Love is like a spectator right now, and he is mystified about it. Channing Frye is mystified as to why he's still sitting on the bench and not getting an opportunity to play while he watches these other players go in and out of the lineup, including people who haven't played for months who aren't really physically ready to play. But to suggest that these players are wondering about the team and its ability to compete or wondering about the front office decisions is flat out not true. And you can't believe what Cleveland.com is printing on their site because it's all part of the Old Boys Network. The only way we can get a goddamn foot over the story of LeBron James' tirade in a locker room and parking lot is to go out and say, well, you know, we're going to tell a 1/3 truth. And then we're going to get the big hitter, Brian Windhorst, to start nibbling around at the edges of the story, suggesting that LeBron James doesn't trust the organization. Fuck them all. Fuck them all. The press has a responsibility to either sit on a story or, when there's proof of the story, deliver the fucking truth. We can't get the truth about anything in our government anymore. What was said in a goddamn meeting, the people who sat there and listened to it can't even agree on what fucking words they heard because of the Old Boys Network. We can't get truth from our press. We watch CNN and we get scandal. All we get is Breitbart reporting from major television networks. Yeah, there's a porn star and they paid her $130,000 worth of hush money. But you know something? We really don't have the details. And you know something? If you don't have the details, don't run with the story. It's just that simple. If you have corroborating sources, run the story. If you have one Democrat who says he used the word shithole in the meeting, and you've got two Republicans who are in the meeting who said, I don't remember hearing that. And then you have a third one who says, well, he used harsh language and I'll just leave it at that. Then you got a bunch of people who were part of the Old Boys Network looking out for their fucking jobs. And they're not telling us the truth. And you know something? We deserve better. We pay the bills. The fans pay the bills. There's nothing wrong about this. Chuck Stake says in the chat room, maybe LeBron tried talking to the front office and got no response. You know something? What is the point of going out and saying that the team probably would have traded him if it weren't for his no trade contract? Why do we care about that kind of a hearsay statement? And our eyes tell us what our eyes tell us. The starting lineup comes out, blows out the Orlando Magic, and makes them look like an amateur outfit. They get rested at halftime and come out and they don't give a flying fuck. It has nothing to do, and they practiced, they knew what they should be doing, they did it in the beginning of the game. It's that the players lack the fortitude emotionally. They lack the emotional investment. And you want to know why? For the same reason that the Boston Celtics got swept. You have two of those guys who've infected the team and they don't have winning attitudes. And the other guy, LeBron James, knows in his heart that the Golden State Warriors are better and that there's no way that the Cavaliers would survive a 7-game series against Golden State. It is unlikely they would even make it to a 5th game against the Golden State Warriors. And in his heart, he knows that. And LeBron is all about postseason and championships. And worse yet, it's nibbling around the edges of LeBron that Boston is a better team with his ex-running mate, Kyrie Irving, than they are. And that even Toronto would beat the Cavaliers right now in a playoff series. It's all about personal achievement for LeBron James. It's like, okay, fine. I understand that. I don't agree with it, but I understand it. But it's not a reason to lower the boom on your teammates and to allow shit to be printed. I mean, if you printed something about LeBron and his family that wasn't true, and I'm sure there have been lots of those things printed, LeBron comes out and he says, damn it, this is wrong, yada, 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 yada. But when he reads what the results of his own tirade were that result in headlines and stories that are made up, he isn't man enough to stand up. And that tells me, unfortunately, something about LeBron James. And it's not something good. Now, what do you do about it? If you're the Cleveland Cavaliers, obviously you have a poison within the organization. And the poison is that maybe they're just not trying because deep down they know they don't have a chance. And maybe that's what happened to Boston the year before. It is what keeps happening to Toronto in the playoffs. There are winners and there are losers. I think Steely Dan said they got a name for the winners in the world. I want a name when I lose. They call Alabama the Crimson Tide. Call me Deacon Blues. So we can call the Cavaliers Deacon Blues because they obviously don't believe in themselves and they're not giving us a full effort. In fact, LeBron James, after the game, tweets out, I was a hot pile of garbage last night. And it's like, last night? It was the night before, 2 nights before, you dimwit. That's when you were a hot, steaming pile of shit, is when you go off on a personal, related, obsessed tantrum and you drag people into your story that shouldn't even be dragged in. That is when you're a hot pile of garbage. If you score 16 points and you turn the ball over and you play like you don't care, that makes you a quitter. A hot pile of garbage is a person who allows falsehoods to be printed, not to stand up like a person. Okay? So that's our story for the day. Next, I do have something else that I wanted to talk about. And that's something, Chuck Steak is saying, I'm not justifying what he did, just playing devil's advocate. Don't grill me too bad. Grill. I get the play on words there. Chuck Steak being grilled. No, I know. I can understand frustration if he's being put off by the front office. I get that. I mean, that would be a legitimate reason to be upset, but it wouldn't be a legitimate reason for still allowing the press to print something about your teammates that wasn't true. Even if those people weren't identified, you know damn well when you see that several, that you're going to bring in LeBron, then you're going to bring in D-Wade, then you're going to bring in Kevin Love. The 3 players that you have who are veteran star players are going to be brought into this. And it's just wrong. The whole thing is just wrong. And I know for one, as a fan, I certainly don't appreciate it. What I'm going to get onto next is the last thing I want to talk about in today's program is Josh Allen and the bullshit that we're seeing. And would the Browns actually draft Josh Allen out of Wyoming, number 1? And that's where, of course, Mel Kiper, the, prognosticator, and I say that lightly, has said, on Mach 1, the Browns will take Josh Allen. And I want to point out something. You're going to get these things. Ron Shane is saying I would sit JR, start Green, and sit Crowder and start Fry. Hey, got to do something. Crowder is just a whiner. Crowder is a rainy day. He's a dark cloud. He's a guy who's obviously not into what he's doing, and he has limited ability. And I'll tell you, Isaiah Thomas shooting the ball 20 times in a game or whatever, I understand he wants to get his legs and all, but, the Isaiah Thomas, who was good when he was healthy, would quickly dribble around the screen and pull up and shoot the jump shot. He can't get around the goddamn screen quick enough now. He gets around a screen and people block his shot because he's 5'9". He doesn't have quickness anymore. The real problem with the Cavaliers, I mean, we can easily say that JR is a problem and that Crowder's a problem, but IT is damaged goods, man. And that ain't coming back. That burst is not coming back, folks. His legs will get stronger, but you're going to see him waddling around and playing at this, his greatest asset was his quickness, and it's gone. And a guy who was, maybe not in game shape would have his quickness, but would run out of stamina quickly. But he doesn't have his quickness. So there you have it. The Josh Allen thing is mystifying to me because it again is part of the old boys network, But he's big and he weighs this much and he's got a strong arm, ... But let me point out that none of the top 20 rated quarterbacks in the NFL ever completed fewer than 60% of their passes in college football. And a lot of these guys played in really good programs. So if you're looking at a Darnold or somebody like a Rosen, you're looking at a 64% passer playing for a program like UCLA or USC, and you can go over the relative merits or lack of merits therein of those programs, but those are facts. I decided to take it upon myself when I read the article that said the most comparable player to Josh Allen would be Ben Roethlisberger, and I said, don't fucking go there. Don't go there. Ben Roethlisberger played at Miami of Ohio, okay? Miami of Ohio and Wyoming. If you want to go ahead and compare the programs, that's absolutely fine. Ben Roethlisberger in his career completed 66% of his passes, had an average 148 quarterback rating with Miami of Ohio, and was 6'5" and 230 pounds and had a strong arm. All right? But no quarterback in the top 20 in the NFL ever completed fewer than 60% of his passes at the college level. Deshaun Kaiser, who would be the worst quarterback, couldn't complete 60% at Notre Dame. The quarterback that I next wanted to compare him to is Joe Flacco, because I think Flacco has the size, the mobility, and also a small college credential at Delaware. Started out at Pitt very briefly, but then went on to play 2 years at Delaware. So that you understand what I'm saying, his average percentage completion for his career was 63.5% with a 145, call it a 135 quarterback rating. Last season, he threw 23 touchdown passes, 5 interceptions, 4,263 yards. Now, nobody's going to tell you that Delaware was a great program, but they would tell you that he was an accurate enough thrower and that he went downfield with the ball and that he was averaging 8.2 yards per passing attempt and throwing for about 284 yards per game. And I can't compare Josh Allen to Joe Flacco because Joe Flacco's stats are remarkably better. If we're looking at the 3-year guy who really played 2 years for Wyoming, Josh Allen, he completed 56% of his passes at Wyoming. He threw for 3,200 yards in his sophomore year and 1,812 because of an injury in his senior season, an average quarterback rating of about 137. But let me explain to you what you're not hearing about Josh Allen specifically. Who does Wyoming play? And when they played Iowa, they lost 24-3. Josh Allen became a dink and dunk quarterback, completing 23 of 40 for 174 yards with 2 interceptions. And that was the first game that they played. It was a big game for them, and that's what happened. But they're playing teams like Gardner-Webb. Who wouldn't look good against Gardner-Webb? They lost 49-13 to Oregon. That's another big school that they played. And that's not very good. Josh Allen was 9 for 24 for 64 yards and 1 interception against the Oregon Ducks. Now are you beginning to see a pattern here, folks? They beat Hawaii. They beat Texas State. They beat Utah State. But, whenever he got to play against somebody good, it wasn't so good. Josh Allen was 12 for 27 for 131 yards with 2 interceptions against number 22 Boise State. And Boise State has some national prominence due to some great seasons they've had in the past. Every name team that he played, and we're not talking about the creme de la creme teams, He did not perform. Yeah, he beat New Mexico, but who doesn't? He beat Air Force, but who doesn't? He had trouble beating Colorado State, and Colorado State is an okay program, but nothing that I would call great. He was 10 for 20 for 138 yards against the Colorado State Rams. So let me, so that you understand, the Browns are not going to draft this guy. There may be somebody who's really interested in Josh Allen. And maybe the Browns are just putting out information about him so that if there is somebody who wants him, it always adds to your ability to trade down from 1 to 3 if the number 3 team wants Josh Allen. Chuck Stake is saying, USA Today headline, Ryan Leaf had the best reaction to Mel Kiper projecting Josh Allen as a top NFL pick. Apparently, Kiper had picked Leaf ahead of Peyton Manning in the draft. Yeah, Mel Kiper, Mr. Hair. He's a werewolf of London. His hair is perfect. But don't worry, we're not going to get Josh Allen because, I mean, first of all, you can't be serious. and second of all, you know, the old boys network of he's 6'5", he's 233 pounds, and he's got a strong arm. I watched film on the guy, and he has nice mechanics. He does. You know, better mechanics than what we've seen from other quarterbacks that the Browns have drafted, but he's not accurate. And, you know, if all you can do is complete 56% pass of your passes, and I'm sharing with you under 50% performances against good teams, it's not like he totally dominated even the Gardner Webbs of the world. I mean, it's just the way it is. So don't freak out, Browns fans. It's not going to be Josh Allen. And if it is, then we can all just put away our memorabilia for another couple of years. Well, today there was a reason to do a show, so I did it. And dilly. And I should pick the games, shouldn't I, before I get the hell out of here. And God only knows I've been wrong about everything since the league ended. We have Jacksonville at New England, and, you know, there's the Tom Brady story, which is Tom Brady going to play? Is how badly is his hand hurt? All of that stuff. You know, but before a game, who knows? You're not going to get accuracy in reporting like we talked about anyway. It's all leading up to the hype of the situation. New England will beat Jacksonville in New England. The league won't let it go any other way. Minnesota at Philadelphia. You know something? You got to start believing at some point. Let's have fun and pick Minnesota, you know? So I'm doing this as I'm saying it. Let's go with Minnesota because I'm voting my heart. I think Minnesota is going to have to play a really tight game. I'm saying that they're going to win 20-17 over Philadelphia. And I'm saying that Jacksonville is going to have trouble doing anything offensively. And I think they're only going to score 13 points. And New England is going to score 24 points. And there you have that. We already know who's going to score the most points. I guess that would be New England. And the least points would be Jacksonville. And those are my picks. Hope it helps. Don't do what I do, whatever. Thanks, everybody, for tuning into this edition of Moohead Radio. Back again on Monday to talk about the fallout from today's show, because I know I'm going to hear about it. Thanks for tuning in, and until Monday, hasta la vista, Pastor Heads. Have a good weekend. Bye-bye.